Okay, we're back. I got the problem solved. So what I'll do is I'm going to restart the virtual machine and get back onto the system. So getting back to the question that we had before, in order to replace the insecure protocols, we need another way to run programs remotely and also to transfer files remotely. That's the job of FTP. And the replacement is to provide the ability to log in remotely, execute programs remotely, and transfer files. We should use SSH as an encrypted protocol. The package name is OpenSSH-server. That's the name of the package. And here we have the virtual machine. We log in as root, and we go ahead and install that package. Aptitude install OpenSSH-server. And here we are installing the package. So we switch back to the browser to move on to the next page. Use PuTTY to log into the virtual machine. Make sure you use port 2201 instead of 2200. We need to log in at least 2 sessions, one as Bond and one as Smart. And we want to explore these 2 accounts. Is there a problem? Specifically, if both users are spies and need to protect the assistants and missions folders from anyone but the user owner of each account, is there a problem the way it is? If there is a problem, describe the problem and be specific. Use actual commands and the results to illustrate your point. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's go back to the virtual machine. OpenSSH should be started up at this point. So I'll go ahead and start up PuTTY. And here, where's PuTTY? PUTTY, right here. Okay, so here we have PuTTY. We have to use localhost as the host name, port 2201, and I'll just say this is for VM 342 P1. And first I'll log in as Bond with the password of 1234. And then I'll log in again using as a Smart. So we'll go to PuTTY again, and this time, because I saved the profile, I can just double click on the profile itself, and this one is Smart. Login password is 1234. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to just check out the folder using ls-l that will display the protection flags or the permission flags of the folders. We can see that the user owner is Smart, the group owner is Smart as well, but the problem is others has read-write access to the assistance folder, as well as read and X permission to the missions folder. So that means potentially we should be able to see those files from Bond, and that's what we'll try next, is to go to Bond's folder and then try that. So in Bond's log session, we'll try to list the files in Smart's folder. So we go to the home folder of Smart, and hey, we can see it has 2 folders. So we'll go into one of the subfolders, say assistance, and we can see 99.txt. Now the question is, can we also see the content of the file? And the answer is yes, we can see the content as well, and that's the problem. Okay, so I'm not going to type the answer here just to save time, but the problem is each spy can see the folders and files of the other's account. Okay, but you should supply more examples, and what commands did you run to confirm that? How would you lock down the folders and or files of the users Bond and Smart? Do so such that they cannot tell what files the other user has, or even if they guess right, they cannot access the files of the other folder. The first part, which is not being able to tell what files the other user has to do with the R permission of a folder. The second part, which is knowing the path, knowing that they have that particular file and still not being able to access it, that has to do with the X permission of a folder. So what we want to do is to lock down both of those flags with the home folder itself. Okay. So in Bond, we'll say chmod O-RX, remove the read and the execute permission from its own folder, which is dot. Okay, so that's the home folder itself. And what we can do is now try to do whatever we used to do in the previous question, and see if we can see anything in Bond, and we can see that the whole folder itself is locked down. We know from the previous attempts that we know there's a folder called assistance, and this time it doesn't even let us access it. In fact, we can try any name, even bogus ones, and it does not confirm that the bogus name does not exist, which is the way it's supposed to be. And we'll do the same thing with the Smart account, chmod O-RX, and also dot here for the home folder. And to answer this question, we can just copy the command chmod O-RX dot. Okay, and we move on to the next question. The next question is about now that we cannot share anything between the two spies, what can we do? What can we do to share the files? And one approach is to set up a third account called Spy Cafe, and use that as a mechanism for the spies to share files that they're willing to share with each other. So for that to happen, we have to first go to the virtual machine, which is still logged in as root, and we say add user Spy Cafe. Okay, and just apply a default password here, and now we have Spy Cafe. Okay, the folder, create a folder in this account called gadgets. Change the permission and the ownership as necessary. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we have to do here. mkdir gadgets. Okay, now let's see what are the objectives here. The folder should remain inaccessible to anyone who is not a user owner or group owner. This means anyone who is not a user owner or group owner should not even be able to check whether the gadgets folder exists, let alone accessing it. So we're getting back to removing the RX permission from others. So that's the first thing we need to do, is to chmod O-RX to the home folder itself. This locks down the whole home folder, and oops, I did it at the wrong place. Okay, so let's go ahead and follow my own instruction. Go to PuTTY again, and this time we log in as Spy Cafe and execute that command, chmod O-RX, the home folder. The second part here is to leave the group owner as Spy Cafe, and nothing really needs to be done because that's the default group owner. Okay, so that's easy because we can also confirm that. Oops. Oh, we ran the command from the wrong place, so we have to make the gadgets folder again, and this time we just double check the group owner is in fact Spy Cafe, so that part is done. Make sure everyone who is a member of the group Spy Cafe can read and write to the folder gadgets. Alright, so we can do that by saying chmod G plus W, group plus write permission to gadgets. Okay, make sure the files created by the members of the group Spy Cafe in Gadgets remain read-only, accessible to other members of the group Cafe. Now, how do we do this? Make sure the files created by the members of the group Cafe in Gadgets remain read-only, accessible to other members of the group Cafe. So that means we don't want to allow other members of the Spy Cafe group to have write permission to the files created. And to do that, you have to add you have to add the two spies, Bond and Smart, to the group Spy Cafe. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to do, because we don't want to change the files to be read-writable by the group, just the folder itself. So this time we have to switch back to the root session, and we have to say add user, and this time we are adding Bond to Spy Cafe, and we also want to add Smart to Spy Cafe, like that. Make sure the user owner of the gadgets directory of Spy Cafe retain the ability to edit and save files. Okay, so that's pretty much by default. We can do it. There's nothing that we have to do. Do not create a new group. We did not create a new group. We already have the group called Spy Cafe. Okay, so this part here, note that you also need to do something with the user Bond and the user Smart to make this work. So that really refers to adding the group user, adding users to the groups respectively. Okay, so here, we also have to log out and log in again. Let me see if this works. Nope. So whenever we log out, we have to basically restart the whole session. So we have to go to PuTTY again and just start up the session again. Okay. I think this one was, so we log in as Bond, and we need the other one to also terminate, and we log in as Smart. Okay, so this time when we log in, both of these will be group owners of Spy Cafe, and we should double check and confirm that. So what we can do is to say ls home Spy Cafe, and we can still see everything in there. But if we do a -ld, we can see that if we were considered others, we should not have access to the content of Spy Cafe. So the fact that we have access to Spy Cafe, the content of the folder Spy Cafe, is because as group members we have read and execute permission into that folder. And we can do the same thing in the Bond session. So we can do the same thing here. And Bond also has access to that as well. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is to confirm that we can create files within a folder. So as Bond, I will create a file in Home Spy Cafe, and in this case Gadget, and I think that's for the next part. So we'll just do some commands here, and I'll just put ... because I'm not really submitting the answer here. Now as Bond, create this folder, so we'll go ahead and do exactly that. This is not the Bond session, this is the Bond session. So we'll go ahead and create that file and use exactly the same path name, Spy Cafe gadgets lotus sub.txt. Okay, so I'll just type some text here. It's a cool car that can navigate underwater. Okay. And also we want to switch to the smart session and create another file. So this time we create Spy Cafe gadgets cone of silence.txt. This may be helpful in a classroom with chatty students. Okay. Alright. So as bond, we want to check that at least we can read the file of cone of silence. So we go to the bond folder and we'll go ahead and see if we can at least read the file called cone of silence. And yes, we can read the file, and also we now confirm that it is read only to bond, which is great because now bond cannot go change the documents created by smart and vice versa. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and say yes, everything is still good and move on. As the last step, as a Spy Cafe, create a folder called comments in its home directory. Make this folder so that users who are not the user owner or the group owner cannot even know the folder exists. And that's already done. There's nothing to do here because the home folder of Spy Cafe is already locked down. So there's no way others can actually see that comments existed. Furthermore, make this folder so that member of the group Spy Cafe can create files. No member of the group Spy Cafe can list the file, and the user owner can continue to list and access the content of comments. So what we need to do is to switch back to Spy Cafe here and make the folder first. Now when you make the folder, the default permissions will still be RX for others. We don't really have to lock it down anymore because the home folder is already locked down, so there's no way others can access it. It doesn't hurt though to do that, so we'll just go ahead and chmod o-rx to comments. Okay, so now the folder is locked down. But we also want to make it possible for each member of the group Spy Cafe to create files in comment. To do that, we have to do a G plus W, just like we did with gadgets, and this time we apply it to comments. Now, the second requirement is the most confusing. No member of the group Spy Cafe can list the files in the folder, but they can still access the file. So that means we are just making sure that the light is turned off so no one can see what's inside the room, but we have to leave the lock of the plexiglass gate open so that people can go in and put additional items into the room. So that means what we need to do is to say G minus R to comments because the R flag is the light switch. Okay, and as a result, when we look at the permissions of comments, it's kind of weird because it has for the group it has no read access, it has write access, and it has the execute access. Okay, so this is a good time to try it out with bond and see if we can leave a comment in that folder. Okay, so as bond, create this folder, create this file. So we just go to Spy Cafe comments, and we'll leave a file called martini is shaken, not stirred. Okay, this is common knowledge to any how do you call people who shake drinks and whatnot? Bartenders. Now, of course, it doesn't really apply to a cafe, but wherever Bond goes, it doesn't drink coffee; it just drinks martini. So there we go. And so the next thing we want to do is to make sure that Bond still has access to that file. No problem. Bond can still access that file. The question is, can Smart take a look and see that Bond has left some useless comment when the restaurant is a cafe? So we'll take a look here. Spy Cafe comments, and Smart cannot do it. Cannot list the folder because it doesn't have permission. It does not have the R permission to comments. So this is great, because we have just accomplished everything that we need to do. We can also confirm that Spy Cafe, the user Spy Cafe, can go to comments, can list all the files, can actually go in and look at the file. Now, in this case, you can see that as the owner, Spy Cafe only has read access to the file, but that's normal because the owner of the file is actually Bond and not Spy Cafe. And the file by default only has RX permission to the group owner, and in fact, this is Spy Cafe can access the file only as others, not as the group owner even. Okay. But that's okay because in this case we just want to make sure Spy Cafe can list the files, and the files can list the folder and view the actual files. Overwriting the file is not a part of the requirement, and that's why we are done with this step as well. Okay. The last step is to execute this command as root. Now, since we don't have a particular PuTTY session as root, I will have to actually enter this by hand. So we say tar czvf to create a file called temp answer.tar.gz -c, which means that we want to change the folder to the root folder, and then we type the subfolders that we want to archive, and that's it. We should take a look at the file here, -l temp answer blah, and it's about 300 kilobytes. That's about the right size, so that's all good. And what is left to do is to download that file to the host operating system and then upload it to the fake assignment for the project, and then we're all done. So I'm not going to illustrate that step, because it's really just downloading and re-uploading the file. So at this point we are done with the homework assignment, the assessment lesson. I hope this is somewhat beneficial, and I'm going to send a link to everyone right now.